Santa, Shri Aniruddha Das Prabhuji, all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are gathered here, please accept my humble obeisances. So today we are going to discuss a very important verse of Shri Bhagavad Gita. Um, Shloka number 13. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara तथा देहांतर प्राप्ति ऋतुरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. Today is a very special day because today is appearance day of Gandhiji, his birthday. So we Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj also he was actually his life history is told that at that time India was striving under Mahatma Gandhi's leadership for freedom from British rule. Means when Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj was in student life. Not caring for their own lives, people all over India were joining the struggle for independence, either through non-violent civil disobedience or through armed revolution. The student community was also involved, and Vinod Bihari, who was still in a high school, became a revolutionary leader. Hiding in forests and jungles, he took part in preparing a revolt against the British. The police were unable to apprehend him. Even while this was going on, Vinod Bihari still passed the entrance examination for Uttarpada College near Calcutta. After studying there for 1 year, he shifted to Daulatpur College. So you see that Vinod Bihari Brahmachari also fought for the freedom of India. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj also he was inspired by Gandhiji in the beginning. But then he came to know from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada that it is very important that we try to, real freedom is the emancipation of the soul from the bondage and go back home, back to Godhead. So then, in India, actually, he actually really he fought for the real freedom, and he started this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Understand? Um, so Srila Gurudev also he tells, we may be faithful servants of our father, mother, husband, and children. We may perform pious activities. Nowadays, to serve the motherland is given high regard. And there are examples of this in every country. In India, Bhagat Singh, Gandhi, and others gave their lives for this purpose. If we serve our country's people but not Krishna, our original father will go to hell. Gurudev is telling this. If we serve our country's people but not Krishna, or our original father will go to hell. Knowing this, we serve Krishna. But if a pravritti, tendency to serve Krishna, Vishnu, Ram, and so forth, comes from fear of suffering, it is Vaidhi Bhakti, regular Bhakti. On the other hand, if by hearing pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Radha Krishna from a pure devotee, or by reading Srimad Bhagavatam and Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita about the service of the gopis and Brajavasis, a tendency or greed comes to serve Krishna as they do. This is Raganuga Bhakti, Srila Gurudev is telling. So Gurudev is explaining here that we must serve Krishna. Like Gurudev is also telling, the dean and professor were unable to explain this verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita to Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj when he was a student. There is a verse which he came across. Jivera Sarupa hai Krishna Nitya Das, Krishna Rathatasta Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. This is a verse from Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 20.108. The inherent form of the Jiva is that of an eternal servant of Sri Krishna. The Jiva is in the marginal potency. Jiva is the marginal potency of Krishna and is therefore simultaneously one with and different from him. The dean and professor were unable to explain this verse. Even in our sampradaya, you'll find very few devotees who can properly explain it. So our Gurudev would have philosophical discussions with them, and in the end, he left that college saying, "Even the professor here understand nothing. So what will they teach me?" At that time, Gandhi had started his movement to oppose the British government, saying the English must leave India, Bharat Chodo. They will not impose the salt tax. All over India, the people revolted against the British. So there was actually the British had put a tax on the salt. Hmm. And people were revolting because salt is free, it's coming from the ocean, and they were still taxing the salt, which is very a big necessity for even poor people. So all over India, the people revolted against the British. So many big names like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Gokhale, C.R. Das, P.C. Rai, and Lala Lajpat Rai joined the opposition movement. It was as if the blood of India's youth was boiling, and at once all of India's industry stopped. Then the English thought Gandhi has so much influence. Our Gurudev joined as well. But when Gandhi withdrew his movement due to violence, Guruji, along with many others, joined the revolutionary party of Subhash Chandra Bose. Taking a knife and a rifle, he remained hidden within the forest and jungles for some time. At that time, the British government issued a warrant for his arrest. He later joined the Gaudiya mission, and then 10 years afterwards, the British government finally came to know of his whereabouts. One day, some agents came to Mayapur looking for Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj with a warrant for Guruji's arrest, and they approached Prabhupada about it. Prabhupada told them, "But look how he has completely changed. He has become a sadhu, a Mahatma." After discussing the matter with Prabhupada and considering further, they withdrew the warrant. Guruji was a champion footballer. So basically, you see that Gandhiji's influence was so much that time. So, so we offer our tribute to Gandhiji, but we should know for sure that we are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We want to follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we are certainly, for example, Gandhiji's influence. Sri Bhakti Krishna also says that once here in India, Gandhi wanted to revive the charkha system of homespun cloth. Now, charkha, you might have seen, charkha is very famous. It's a spindle actually to make the cotton thread. And then Gandhiji used to use that so that first they used to make thread at home from cotton, spinning it, and then that would be sold actually. So he wanted to encourage the cotton industry, home industry, so that people will get a livelihood. Basically, that was the aim and um, that was the aim and object actually. So you see here that Gandhiji is spinning the charkha. So his charkha is a wheel actually. So this actually in charkha system, produce the poor produce thread with a spinning wheel, and if someone buys that cloth called khadi, then the money goes to the pockets of the poor. But the Japanese and English cloth factories sent imitation homespun khadi here. Means they were manufacturing some rough cloth and calling it khadi. The Japanese and English were sending to India. They began manufacturing rough cloth, imitating the ordinary homespun cloth produced here by the poor. Gandhi found himself perplexed. What is this? He said. My need is that the money go to the poorest pocket, but now the capitalists are producing imitation rough cloth abroad, and that is being sold here in India. Instead of money going to the poor here in India, it is going to the foreign capitalist. Then he founded one association, the Khadi Association. He told his followers, "You must purchase homespun cloth only from those shops who are connected with this association of mind. Then the money will surely go to the pockets of the poor. At this time, he said, this is Guru Parampara, the system of discipline succession. Of course, this is a crude example. So basically, revealed truth coming uncontaminated through a particular process is Parampara. We must connect with a reliable succession. Only then can we get the genuine thing. The authorized association is necessary. Guru Parampara is necessary. So before we read anyone's book, we shall try to find out who is his guru and from where the substance is coming down. Is it only a facade or is there any real substance within? Understand. So this is very, very important. Srila Bhakti Rakshashri Maharaj is telling that just like Gandhi created authorized khadi shops, the sale is authorized khadi. Otherwise, they will be purchasing imitation khadi from England or from Japan. So if we can understand that he has a relationship with the genuine sadhu, then we can give some attention to him. So here, mention of Gandhi comes. Uh, so actually, there is one memory of Gandhiji. I remember in this connection that when Gandhi formed his non-violence army, one of the volunteers asked, "Please arrange tea for us." The tea was very popular, so we wanted to drink tea. So the volunteers asked, "Give us tea." The water, Gandhi told him, the water of the river may be supplied to you, but not tea. If you are ready for that, then come forward. If you want to connect ourselves with the Vrindavan Lila of Krishna, we can make no conditions. And then we shall understand the method of recommended by Sriman Mahaprabhu. Humility greater than that of a blade of grass. There should be no complaint from our side, not only in the external position of our present life, but even in eternal life. So, like one person came to Gandhiji and said, "Give us tea." And Gandhi said, "Instead of tea, you should be able to drink the water of river, which is free." So, like that, bhakti should also, we should not put any condition in Vrindavan. So, you see that Gandhiji, national Nama. What happened when Gandhi, he was shot by Nathuram Godse. And he cried out. He cried when he was shot. It was excruciating pain right in the chest. He was old. He cried, "Ram, Ram." He was shot in the chest, and his spectacles were thrown into the street. Within half an hour, he passed away, but he pronounced the words Ram, Ram. He was on his way to deliver a religious lecture, but his mentality was full of thoughts of national progress. So, in his case, the vibration of the name may have worked in the plane of national building. To understand a person's destination at a time of death, we must ask, what was his mentality? So, see, Gandhiji chanted the name Ram, Ram. But what was he thinking when he was chanting Ram, Ram? He was thinking of building of national progress. Understand? So, in this case, this name may have worked for the plane of national building, nation building. So, to understand a person's destination at a time of death, we must ask what was his mentality. Sometimes chanting the name may result in Namabhas, the shadow of the name. Whether or not it is Shuddhanam, the genuine name depends on the mental system of the person chanting the name. It depends on his relation towards Krishna, his intention. So this is what his Srila Bhakti Rakshashri is telling. Um, the right to wrong. Basically, is now talking about the right to wrong. To the right to do wrong. Once an Indian political leader, Shyam Sundar Chakrabarti, asked our spiritual master, Prabhupada, why was the Lord, why has the Lord granted such freedom to the jiva? Prabhupada told him, you are fighting for freedom. So Shyam Sundar Chakrabarti is asking that why the Lord gave freedom to the jiva, if the jiva is going to misuse that and fall in such big mess. And Prabhupada told, you are fighting for freedom. Don't you know the value of freedom? devoid of freedom, the soul is only matter. Freedom offers us the alternative to do right or wrong. Once Gandhi told the British authorities, "We want freedom." They replied, "You are not fit to have self government. When you are fit, we shall give it to you." But finally, he told them, "We want the freedom to do wrong." So, freedom does not guarantee only acting in the right way. Freedom has its value independent of right and wrong. Free will is the only Free will is only absolute with absolute truth. Means Krishna has 100% free will. Because we are finite, our free will is infinitesimal. Means infinitesimal means very minute. We also have free will, but our free will is infinitesimal. Hmm. The possibility of committing a mistake is there. Our first choice was to dominate, and so um, gradually we have entered the world of domination. And as a result of this first action, everything else has developed. So, in different ranks, the species have been divided from the demigods down to the trees and stones, and watery bodies, gaseous bodies. Anything that we find here has evolved in that way. The activating principle in any form of embryological development is the soul, and from the soul, everything has evolved. So, this is actually what Gandhiji he has actually what he has written about the Gita. He is writing that the Gita has always been a source of consolation to me. When there is no light approaching me, I open the Gita and a verse accidentally found gives me back my smile. Mahatma Gandhi. Uh, so this is Gandhiji's about Bhagavad Gita. So Gandhiji actually, even Gandhi wanted to enter the Jagannath Puri temple with some of his outcast or lower caste followers, but they were prohibited. Gandhi also stayed out. He wanted to enter along with the outcast of society. Despite his great influence over the country, he was refused entrance. Without his knowledge, Gandhi's wife, means Kasturba Gandhi, entered to have the darshan of Lord Jagannath. When he came to know of it, he severely chastised her for entering without him. So Gandhi was more of a patriot than a devotee. He thought his lordship over his wife was permanent and absolute. Hmm. He was considering Kasturba is my wife and I must lord over her. My lordship over her should be permanent and absolute, not to be modified even by devotion for Lord Jagannath. But according to us, his wife did right. How permanent is the relationship between husband and wife? For the main part, it is only a bodily relationship. And what is the relationship with the Lord? The husband of husbands, the master of the whole world. What is the nasty husband in this world in comparison with the Lord of the whole world, whole universe? For a national cause or the cause of his political creed, Gandhi wanted to check his wife going to the temple as though God were within the jurisdiction of politics. Haridas Thakur never entered the Jagannath temple, nor did Rupa and Sanatan. Not only that, but Sanatan Goswami even avoided the main streets where the servitors of Jagannath would usually pass. He did not walk there, giving respect to the current laws and bylaws of the Pandas and the Brahmanas, whose edicts were above the jurisdiction of the king. So, so this is actually about Gandhiji. Certainly was a very powerful personality. Mm. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Marg also was, I think, influenced by him. He's writing that actually, I searched for such a sadhu to accept as my Gurudev, but I was not satisfied. And in due course, I went to study law in Calcutta. Then, leaving college, I joined with the non cooperation movement of Gandhi. I joined temporarily because I considered that my fate already tied with Mahaprabhu and therefore could not give anyone my whole life's energy. After 6 years, the movement allowed me temporary leave. So he was also in non-cooperation movement. Srila Bhakti Shikshidhar Maharaj also. Because he said that he joined this movement of Gandhi. Gandhi's movement of non-cooperation came. I came forward. I joined the movement because there was some sort of promise that within 1 year, I will, I will give Swaraj, independence to you. Gandhiji had promised. So he joined like that. So actually, so anyways, so we'll carry on with the Bhagavad Gita, which Gandhiji says also that he liked very much. It's very important to discuss today's verse. Shloka 13. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara तथा देहांतर प्राप्तिर धीरस तत्र न मुह्यति. Yatha, just as asmin in this dehe body, dehina belonging to the embodied soul, passing from kaumaram boyhood, yauvanam to youth, jara to old age, tatha in the same way, when there is prapti achievement, dehantara of a change of body, tatra then dhiraha a thoughtful person, na muyati, is not confused. Just as the embodied Atma passes from boyhood to youth or to old age, similarly after death, he passes into another body. An intelligent person is not bewildered by the birth and death of the body. Sarartha commentary, the following point may be raised. Since the Atma is associated with the body will also be an object of our love. Furthermore, those who are related to the body, such as sons, brothers, relatives, grandsons, and so on, will also be the objects of Allah. So when they die, will certainly feel grief. Shri Bhagavan speaks this shloka beginning with Dehinaha in answer to this. The Jiva in the body attains boyhood, at the end of boyhood attains youth, and at the end of youth he attains old age. Similarly, at the loss of body, he attains another body. Just as one does not grieve at the end of boyhood and youth, which are objects of love due to their relationship with the Atma, similarly, one should not grieve for the loss of the body itself, which is also an object of love due to its relationship with the Atma. When it is lost, if a person grieves when he attains old age at the loss of youth, then he also feels happy when he attains youth at the loss of boyhood. Therefore, you should feel happy because when Bhishma and Drona lose their old bodies, they will attain new ones. Or you should consider that just as in one body various stages of growth are reached, the same jiva attains various types of bodies. The word Dehi refers to the Atma or Jiva, which is unchangeable, whereas the body is subject to transformation. Even when the body undergoes changes from boyhood to youth, to old age, and to death, the embodied Atma does not undergo any change. It always remains the same. Therefore, it is not proper to lament for the loss of the body. Just as when one leaves boyhood and attains youth, one feels happiness instead of grief. Similarly, after death, one attains a new, able, and beautiful body. Therefore, why should one feel distress? Rather, one should only feel happiness. King Yati became old in his youth because he was cursed by his father-in-law, Shukracharya. In great distress, he humbly begged forgiveness at the feet of Shukracharya. To please his daughter, who was married to the king, Shukracharya gave him the boon that he could exchange his old age for the youth of any of his young sons. His eldest son Yadu refused because he wanted to perform Bhagavad Bhajan. But his youngest son, Puru, gave his youth and accepted the old age of his father. In this way, Yayati again became young and enjoyed with his queens, Devayani and others. In the company of his sons and grandsons, he considered himself very happy. Finally, however, he understood that all these pleasures were temporary and the cause of unlimited misery. Thus he returned to his son's youth. Thus he returned his son's youth to him and went to the forest to perform bhajan of Bhagwan. Srimad Bhagavatam 9 Canto, 18th chapter. So, therefore, it is appropriate to feel happy knowing that at the loss of an old, weak and withered body, one will achieve a healthy, strong and beautiful new body. So very nice verse. Dehino yasmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara तथा देहांतर प्राप्ति धीरस तत्र न मुह्यति देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहांतर प्राप्ति धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. Dehina of the embodied, asmin in this, yatha as in the body, kaumaram boyhood, yauvanam youth, jara old age, tata similarly dehantar of transference of the body, praptihi achievement, dhira the sober, tatra thereupon, na never, muhyati is diluted. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change, but since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death, neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering, according to one's work in life. So, Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So, in either case, there was no cause of lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable, against the principle of the supreme souls being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the supreme exist eternally, sanatan, and are called kshara. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so. Even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the super soul, who is present in each and every individual body and is known as the Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is personality of God is Shri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the fourth chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then the relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other being the instructed. Such instruction would be useless because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity, Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. So, very nice verse here. Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhirastatra namuyati. This one verse, I think, very much highly quoted by Srila Bhaktivedanta Sai Maharaj. So, we'll take the next verse now. Verse number 14 from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. Um, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada agama payino nityas tam titikshasva bharata. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada agama payino nityas tam titikshasva bharata. Kaunteya, a son of Kunti, sparsha, sense perceptions. Matra are momentary, two only. Daha, they give the sensations of Shita, cold, and Ushna, heat, Sukha, happiness, and Dukkha, distress. They are Anitya, flickering, and Agama Paina, come and go. Bharata or Bharat, Titikshasva, you must tolerate, Tan, them. O Kaunteya, when the senses come in contact with the sense objects, one experiences cold, heat, happiness, and distress. Such experiences are flickering and temporary, and therefore, O Bharat, you must learn to tolerate them. Sarartha Varshitika. Arjuna may tell Krishna, what you have said is true, yet the troublesome mind of an indiscriminate person like myself, which is covered by grief and lamentation, is a source of misery. It is not only the mind which causes trouble. Through the impressions of the mind, the senses experience their respective sense objects. Thus, the senses, such as the sense of touch, also become the cause of trouble. For this reason, Krishna says matra, indicating the sense objects that are accepted by the senses. The experience of such sense objects is called sparsha. Shri Bhagavan explains Shitoshna Agama Paina. Although cool water gives pleasure in the winter, although the cool water gives pleasure in the summer, that same water is the cause of distress in winter. Therefore, knowing them to be temporary and flickering, one should tolerate the experience of these sense objects. To tolerate them is an obligation prescribed in the Shastra. Taking bath is troublesome in the month of March, the winter month of January. In spite of this, one is not supposed to give up the obligatory routine of bathing as enjoined in the Shastra. Similarly, those same persons, one's brother, son, etc., who give happiness both when they are born and when they earn wealth, give pain at the time of their death. Knowing this happiness and distress to be temporary and flickering, you should tolerate it. You cannot give up your swadharma of fighting in the battle on the plea of affection for such relatives. It is definitely a cause of great disturbance to give up one's swadharma that has been recommended in the Shastra. Amazing verse. Matra sparshasu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada Agama payino nityastam titikshasva bharata. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkhada. Agama payino nityastam titikshasva bharata. Matra sparsha, sensory perception. Two only. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Shita, winter, Ushna, summer, Sukha, happiness, Dukkha, of and pain, Daha, giving, Agama, appearing, Apa, Apayinaha, disappearing, Anityaha, non-permanent, Tan, all of them, Titikshasva, just try to tolerate, Bharata, or descendant of the Bharata dynasty. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance is in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, ocean of Bharat. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. But in the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning during the month of Magh, January and February. It is very cold at the time, but in spite of that, a man who abides by the religious principle does not hesitate to take his bath. Similarly, a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge. Because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya, illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him as Kaunteya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting. So, next verse, text 15. Yamhina व्यथयन्ते te purusham purusharshava samadukha sukham dhiram swamrutatvaya kalpate. Yamhina व्यथयन्ते te purusham purusharshava samadukha sukham dhiram swamrutatvaya kalpate. Yam, one to whom, he certainly, no, never, Gathayanti are distressing, ete, all these, Purusham to a person, Purusha Rishabha, or best among men, Sama, unaltered, Dukkha in distress, Sukham and happiness, Dhiram, patient, Saha, he, Amritatvaya, for liberation, Kalpate is considered eligible, or best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can easily and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashram institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyas, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyas order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever the family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere. Even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet, for a higher cause, he took sannyas and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is a way of achieving liberation from material bondage. So, this is a nice verse. Um, Yam hina vyatayantati ete purusham purusharshava samadukha sukham dhiram samrtatvaya kalpate. So here, um, samrtatvaya kalpate. Yamina vyatayante te. So basically, Krishna is telling us that we have to tolerate. We have to keep on tolerating. Or best among men, that sober person for whom happiness and distress and the experience of various sense objects are the same, and who is not disturbed by them, is certainly qualified to attain liberation. If one properly deliberates on the influence of the sense objects and practices tolerance of them, they will not be the cause of misery when one experiences them. When the sense objects are no longer a cause of misery, one will naturally become closer to attaining mukti. Therefore, the sloka beginning with yamhi na is being spoken. Here, the word amritatvaya means moksha, moksha, liberation. So, shloka 16, na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, uvayorapi drishtontas, tu ananta tam anayos tattvadarshivim. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata. Ubayoropi drishtontas tu anayos tattvadarshivim. Asata, of the temporary, vidyate, there is two, indeed, na, no, bhava, existence, sataha, of the eternal, vidyate, there is na, abhavaha, destruction, darshivi, by the knowers, tattva, of the truth, this, api, very, antaha, conclusion was, drishtaha, observed, anayo, of these, uvayo, two, of the temporary, such as winter or summer, there is no permanent existence, and of the eternal, such as the jivatma, there is no destruction. Those who are knowers of the truth have reached this conclusion by deliberating on these subject matters. Sarartha, these words are spoken by persons who have not yet attained discrimination. According to the Shruti statement, Asangohi ayam purushaha. The Jivatma does not factually have a relationship with either the subtle or gross body, nor with the characteristics of the body, such as lamentation and delusion, which are imagined only due to ignorance, avidya. For this reason, the present shloka beginning with the word na sataha is spoken. The word asataha means that due to their non spiritual nature, lamentation and delusion, which appear to be in both the jiva, who is spiritual by nature, and his shelter, the gross body, have no real existence. Similarly, the word sataha means that the jivatma, whose nature is sat, eternal, is never destroyed. In this way, the fundamental principle of sat and asat is understood. Thus, you and Bhishma are eternal. Knowing this bodily identification, lamentation, and delusion do not exist in relationship to the imperishable Atma, how can Bhishma and the others be annihilated? And why should you grieve for them? So Krishna is telling again and again, don't grieve for their soul or body, because body is destructible and soul is indestructible. So, very nice verse actually. Um, ना सतो विद्यते भावो ना भावो विद्यते सता उभयोरपि दृष्ट्वान्तस्त्वम् अयोस्त्वं तत्त्वदर्शिभिः न सतो विद्यते भावो न भावो विद्यते सता उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तस्त्वनन्तो अनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः न never asatah of the non-existent vidyate there is bhava endurance na never abhava changing quality vidyate there is satah of the eternal vayo of the two api verily drishta observed anta conclusion two indeed anayo of them tattva of the truth darshivi by the seers. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent material body there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. There is no endurance of the changing body, that the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the soul of the truth, both impersonalist and personalist. In the Vishnu Puran, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jyotishmai Vishnu Bhuvanani Vishnu. The words existent and non-existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all seers of truth. That is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re-establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable. The consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself, the difference between oneself and the Supreme Being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutra as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. The living entities belong to the superior nature as it will be revealed in the seventh chapter. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic is accepted as the supreme and energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. The living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance, and to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad Gita for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time. Hare Krishna. So very wonderful verses today. We are stopping here. 2.16. So next class will begin from the verse number 2.17. So Bhagavad Gita 2.17 will begin. अविनाशितद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशम अव्यस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुम् अर्हसि. This verse 2.17 will begin next time. So anyone has any questions, comments, please ask. Hare Krishna. अविनाशि तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशम् अव्यस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुम् अर्हसि. अविनाशि तद्विद्धि येन सर्वम् इदं ततम् विनाशम् अव्यस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हसि अविनाशि तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् विनाशम् अव्यस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हसि. Very nice verse. So we'll begin next time, verse number 2.17. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarvesya kripa sindhuvecha pattanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai. Thank you so much. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Andarbika Giridhari श्री राधा विनोद बिहार जी की जय. नितला पृष्ठ जगत गुरु शिष्य भक्तिदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज गुरुदेव की जय. लीला पृष्ठम विष्णुपा शिष्य भक्तिदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय. लीला पृष्ठम विष्णुपा शिष्य भक्तिदांत त्रिविक्रम गोस्वामी महाराज की जय. लीला पृष्ठम विष्णुपा श्रीमद गुरु गोविंद गोस्वामी महाराज की जय. लीला पृष्ठम विष्णुपा श्रीमद भक्तिदांत साई महाराज की जय. आचार्य के श्री श्रीमद भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय. सपरिकर जगत गुरु शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद ठाकुर की जय. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपी गोवर्धन द्वादश मनात्मक मंडल की जय. हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. त्रिंडी स्वामी श्री श्रीमद भक्तिदांत दंडी महाराज जी की जय. नामनिष्ठ संत श्री अनिरुद्धास प्रभु की जय. मठे सेवक वृंद की जय. धामवासी भक्त वृंद की जय. समागत भक्त वृंद की जय. चातुर्मास व्रत की जय. श्रीमद भगवत गीता एज इट इज की जय. श्रील भगवत श्री गुरुदेव भगवत गीता सार्थ वर्षिणी टीका की जय. निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे. हरि हरि बोल. हरे कृष्ण. थैंक यू. हरे कृष्ण. सी यू टुमारो नाइट. हरि बोल. धन्यवाद.